Hey guys, this is Splurky, and in this video I'm going to be covering the combination of Yoimiya and Tartaglia and why I'm so excited for it, and why I think this is going to be one of the better combos for Tartaglia just because of how well they synergize with each other. Now I can only really get in depth the artifacts and the weapons of choice for Tartaglia, given the fact that we don't know if any new pyro sets are going to be released in Inazuma to complement Yoimiya. And I don't want to completely and solely base her off of what we currently have in the game until we know for sure if anything new is coming. Also, please take this with a grain of salt, because we don't know if all information that we have for currently for Yoimiya is going to be what is going to be when she's on the live servers. Now, this isn't reinventing the wheel, and this is nothing new, and this is just a vaporize combo between two technically sub DPS styles, since they're both going to be on the field for roughly 15 seconds, but they work together to be the main DPS for the team. But it has more of a focus on my boy Tartaglia, more so than other vaporize comps, more so leaning towards like a vaporize comp like Hu Tao, where she would be on the field more often than Tartaglia because she just kind of explodes everything. So how Yoimiya works: she's a bow user, and every bow user has their normal attacks. Now her normal attacks have an extremely clean animation, full bias. Her charge shot is similar to Ganyu's charge shot, and the fact that it has a level 2. Now her level 2 charge shot is going to generate kindling arrows up to a maximum of 3 kindling arrows. And they're essentially just homing pyro arrows. So rejoice, mobile players. Her elemental skill is Taika Fire Dance, which is going to imbue her normal attacks with pyro. The duration of the ability is 10 seconds, and the cooldown is 20 seconds. Now while you're in Taika Fire Dance, you don't have access to the second level of your charge shot, so no kindling arrows in the Fire Dance. Sag. Now Yoimiya's elemental burst is Ryukin Saxifrag. I hope I said that right. This ability will deal AoE pyro damage, and it will apply Aurora's Blaze to enemies hit. Now Yoimiya herself can't trigger the explosions that will be caused when enemies affected by Aurora's Blaze take damage, but her teammates do it for her. Whenever an enemy that is affected by Aurora's Blaze is defeated, it'll spread in a similar way of a Tartaglia Riptide. The explosions can only be triggered once every 2 seconds. And now moving on to Yoimiya's passives. Her flavor passive is Blazing Match, which is going to refund materials for decoration, ornament, and landscape furnishings. Tricks of the Troublemaker: while in Fire Dance, her normal attacks will stack a pyro damage bonus of 2%, and it'll stack up to 10 times for 3 seconds. A total of 20% pyro damage for 3 seconds, pretty solid. Her last passive is Summer Scorch. Using Ryukin Saxifrag will cause nearby party members, excluding herself, to gain a 10% attack increase for 15 seconds, but a further attack bonus will be added on top of that, depending on the number of Trick of the Troublemaker stacks you have. So you can have a max of 25% attack increase for the rest of your team, which is pretty stonk. And I'm very excited for her release. I'm not gonna cover her constellations though, because as a low spender I'm just a low spender, being truthful. But for the free to play homies, there's just no need to get into her constellations. They'll be on screen and you can screenshot it, or you can just go check out Honey Hunter, because without Honey Hunter I wouldn't be able to show you all of this information. So please, huge shout out to them. Thank you so much for what you do. Go check them out. All your information on your favorite husbandos and waifus of Genshin Impact are there, and I will leave the link in the description. Okay, now it's Tartaglia time. So if you've been playing Genshin for a while, you know how Tartaglia works. But if you're new, then hey, we'll run over how Tartaglia works, because I love talking about Tartaglia. So Tartaglia is a bow user, and what makes him so special is the fact that he has a bow stance and a melee stance. Tartaglia's elemental skill is Foul Legacy Raging Tides, where he enters a melee stance, and he can stay in this melee stance for a maximum of 30 seconds. But the longer you stay in the melee stance, the longer the cooldown will be, to a maximum of 50 seconds. The only way to bypass that is if you have a C6 Tartaglia, which will reset the cooldown whenever you use your elemental burst. But for the sakes of keeping this as free to play as possible, we're just going to ignore all constellations. Now when you're using Tartaglia as a DPS, you're going to be running a 4-piece Heart of Depth. Now you could use Noblesse Oblige and 2-piece Heart of Depth with a 2 and 2 for more elemental burst damage, but it's kind of inconsistent to me, and I would rather just play the 4-piece Heart of Depth and get more out of my normal attacks and just have them as a consistent DPS instead of burst damage. Now Heart of Depth 4-piece is going to give you a 15-second buff, and that buff is going to give you a 35% damage bonus to your normal and your charge attacks. That in combination with Yoimiya's Summer Scorch is going to be a 60% damage increase for 15 seconds. Both lasting 15 seconds is so amazing for Tartaglia because it doesn't add this clunky layer or anything. They're both 15 seconds. Go out there, attack for 14, use your ult at the end, and then swap back to Yoimiya, and then you just keep it flowing. Now speaking of bursts, and I always call elemental burst ults because I'm an idiot. Since Tartaglia has 2 stances, of course, Tartaglia has 2 bursts. Now, Tartaglia's bow stance burst is Flash of Havoc, and it's going to deal AoE hydro damage and apply Riptide and refund a portion of the energy used on it. But while Tartaglia is in melee stance, it becomes Light of Obliteration, which will do a big Hydro Slash, dealing AoE hydro damage and triggering Riptide Blast. Now Riptide Blast consumes all stacks of Riptide and triggers Hydro Explosions, all counting as elemental burst damage. Now Tartaglia has 2 different Riptide effects, Riptide Slash and Riptide Flash. Now Riptide Flash is triggered through charge shots. Whenever Tartaglia has a charge shot hit a target that is affected by Riptide, it's going to trigger Riptide Flash, which will deal 3 ticks of AoE hydro damage to the target and anything near it. Riptide Slash is going to do, well, a slash of hydro damage to the target affected by Riptide and anything near it. 1 triggered in melee, slash in melee, flash in bow. Now that that's out of the way, you have an understanding of Tartaglia, you have an understanding of Yoimiya. We're just going to map out the combo, and here you go. So you start with Yoimiya, starting with her Fire Dance. You deal your pyro damage, you generate your stacks of Tricks of the Troublemaker, you aim to have 10 before using your Ryukin Saxifrage to apply your Aurora's Blaze. You swap out to your Tartaglia, his attack is going to be increased by 25%. You activate your Heart of Depth, giving another 35% to his normal and charge attacks. Use them, spread around your Riptides, which will also be defeating enemies, spreading more Aurora's Blaze, triggering Vaporize constantly. And then at the end, right before your buffs wear off, if you have your burst up, make sure to use one of your 2 bursts depending on the situation that you're in. If new enemies spawn, for example, and you just want to spread your Riptide, that way whenever you swap to Yoimiya, you can trigger more Vaporize through her. Use your Flash of Havoc, your bow stance. But if you want to just go ahead and get the biggest burst to finish a fight, use your melee stance, Light of Obliteration, and proc your Riptide Blast on top of it to end the fight that way. While you're defeating enemies, Riptide and Aurora's Blaze are going to be spreading. So it's a really fun dot spread comp. And I love that kind of stuff. Again, thank you, honey, for just giving us the resources to know all of these numbers. Shout outs to the person who leaked this information for the community to see, to generate hype. Thank you for showing us. You showed me my secondary main, Yoimiya. I love you for that. Thank you. Without those 2 resources, there's no way I can make this video. If you want to see more Genshin Impact related content, like the video, subscribe maybe. Hey, it's free, helps me out, helps you out because you could see what else I do here. And if you're feeling even more generous than that and want to hang out with me, I stream on twitch.tv/Splurky. Come hang out with us. We have fun. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.